Break with Reality, Part 3. Rock shit, she murmured to herself with a rueful smile, shaking her head. Kirsten lit a cigarette with the red swan lighter and took a drag. For one thing, she wouldn't describe her music as rock, and for another, she was sure that being 31 disqualified her from being any kind of chick. Damned patriarchy again, she thought, taking another long draw of the fag. She wasn't even sure why she was smoking anyway. I mean, she averaged around 3 cigarettes a week these days, but she just felt like having one, like she usually did after finishing a gig. Association or something. Post-coital, but after playing a gig rather than playing at sex. And speaking of sex, that reminded her how long it had been since she had last had any of that. What was it, 6 months or something? With that idiot she got off with at Draconian's gig. What even was his name again? Jack? Jim? What a letdown that had been. It had been the time just before her period when she'd have shagged anything that moved. She closed her eyes and shook her head once again, laughing at the situation she'd a habit of getting herself into. Took a deep breath. Sheesh, she'd be as well sewing it up. Still, that curly guy seemed okay, apart from the rock chick comment. Something vaguely endearing about the way he seemed so nervous and awkward in that sad attempt at the conversation that they'd had. Quite respectful, and it's not at all lecherous or lewd like the other usual guys that come up to her post-gig. A bit older, but then she didn't mind men a few years ahead of her. Couldn't stand boys though. She'd realised a while back that not all boys were young. Yup, she'd had a fair share of men who turned out to be thinly disguised boys in reality, most in search of a one-off shag with someone who reminded them of their mother, no doubt. Your cue, Freud. Fucking well, Graham, that was a boy, if ever she'd seen one. Why in fuck's name had her ma got herself inveigled with such an irredeemable ring piece as that guy? A boy in man's clothing, for sure. Twat. Misogynistic, entitled braggart of an arsehole. She was so glad she'd finally managed to afford to move out of there into her own flat. Worth the extra money so she didn't have to look at that fucking idiot face of a morning. The gig was okay though. Got a few bits wrong, but Joe Public wasn't paying close enough attention to notice mistakes. She should really be back in there punting CDs and t-shirts to the folk that saw it, few that there were. She noticed how many people were now arriving to see the main band, just in time to miss the support. She'd bet that they were the type of people down the line who'd swore they'd seen him play that night in the vague likelihood they ever made it. Like the thousands who'd been at the 100 Club to see the Pistols in '76. Charlatans, the lot of them. Well, she thought, sales beckon, and if she was going to manage to afford that 71 US Fender Strat, she'd better start selling some merch. Kirsten took a final draw, banged her cigarette onto the pavement and headed back into the venue. Cataract Resemblance were now setting up, and Dougal could see that the guy adjusting the bass amp was a big, tall, strapping youth in his mid-20s. He hoped he wasn't the jealous type. The band played their set. Nothing really to write home about. Guitar-driven, synth-laden, real drums, lonely melancholic vocals, and very danceable, but ultimately very forgettable. Maybe he had to know the songs, Dougal thought. He'd have to see them again. Breaking down and packing up of gear started happening, and before long Jingo appeared, carrying a guitar case and a synth stand. "Hey guys!" He was on that post-gig high that happens when everything seems to have gone well. The crowd responded appropriately, and life for the next hour or so, anyway, is good. "Hey Jingo, it's a good big gig, pal," Dougal said, patting him on the shoulder. "Few mistakes but I think we pulled it off." "I never noticed one mistake, mate. You're too harsh on yourself. It was great." Dougal always liked to be constructively critical about a band, always trying to remind himself of what it was like when he once was in that position. Jingo put the guitar case on the floor and took out his mobile. "Hey, if you're still around later, I'm having a wee get-together back at my place. You got my number?" No, I haven't," said Dougal. "Give us a text then. I'm 077 65 43218. He felt quite proud at remembering his own number. Not very often he'd call himself. "Here you go." Jingo pressed the green send button on his device. A few seconds later, Dougal felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. Took it out and added the number as a new contact to his address book. "Okay, that's me got you. What time you gotta be up there, like?" We should be up there after the pub, probably around 2:30 or 3 thereabouts. Ace, we'll see you there then. Aye, no probs guys, cheers for coming down. Dougal looked round and Keir was standing with an empty glass. His solid frame was wavering slightly, and the sight made Dougal realise how drunk they were becoming. Keir swept his dirty blonde fringe out of his eyes. Well then, my friend, said Dougal, I was thinking we'd maybe better go somewhere with a bit more life about it. Drammers, said Keir, gazing upwards as if reading from an imaginary available pubs list in the ceiling. Aye, that'll do for me. Dougal drained his glass and they made their way towards the exit of the archways. On nearing the door, he noticed the bass player from Cataract Resemblance standing beside the merchandise table. The guitar-playing beauty was at the other end, haggling with someone trying to get a bargain t-shirt. Dougal decided he should ease his conscience. Hey, great gig, man, Dougal said, reaching up to pat the tall bass player on the shoulder. Oh, aye, thanks, he replied in a curiously effeminate tone. Aye, good stuff. I liked your ladies' band as well. He looked at Dougal with what seemed to be vague confusion and suspicion in his eyes. And what lady would that be? He lowered his gaze and looked coyly over at the smirking young man beside him, who Dougal assumed was his friend. He was beginning to smell a rat. Dougal got lost in confusion for a second, and then decided shutting up would be his best option. Oh, well, never mind, great gig anyway, he laughed. Turning to search out Keir, he eventually pinpointed him just outside the venue doors, smoking a cigarette. Putting his empty glass down and moving towards the door, he glanced back to see the two men sniggering and pointing at him. He'd been done all right, but he didn't mind. This could mean she didn't have a boyfriend, a glimmer of hope. Dougal nodded to Keir on the way out, and they headed up the sloping enclosed cobbled roadway to the space in front of the supermarket. Aye, she was haying me on, that she was, Dougal said, as they both buttoned up their jackets against the raw breeze. Who? The singer? Aye, her. Told me she was going out with a bass player dude from the other band, but you know what? I think he might well be gay. Ah, Keir seemed to find this overly funny to Dougal's mind. The joke only made Dougal like her even more. So it was eyes down and head for the next pub. Eyes down because they were now in an area where the wrong eye contact at the wrong time could mean getting your head kicked in. Dougal remembered back to when the smoking ban came in. Before it arrived, you could tell when there was going to be trouble ahead because there would be the usual crowd outside the pub door, and in getting closer you would start to hear the shouts of men and the screams of women egging the men on, defending their honour, no doubt. Which is why he often found himself disproportionately anxious when walking up a busy street at night. He'd be aware of the upcoming crowds he was going to have to negotiate, except that 9 times out of 10 it was now just a clique of smokers huddling together for warmth against the dark wet night while they had a fag. The only thing they were fighting was the cold breeze. Still, one could never be sure, so it was always still better to err on the cautious side, Dougal reasoned. Onwards to Drammers. Drammers is a strange pub come music venue. If the band playing could sell it out, then it would be just like any other gig. If you couldn't quite pull enough of a crowd specifically to see your band, then because of its location on one of the busiest pedestrianised streets in Aberdeen, most of the people in there were going to be passing trade. They would have come in just because it was the next place in their pub crawl. They had no interest in the band slugging their guts out on stage and, if anything, would most probably find the band annoying, a distraction interrupting the conversation they were having with their mates. This makes for a rather unsatisfactory gig, as the crowd noise barely changes during and between songs, apart from maybe when a fight broke out. This wasn't one of those nights though. This was nice and busy. Who's that then? Keir asked in a raised voice as they struggled to the bar. I think it's Prince Darkness and the Cave Dwellers, Dougal said, squinting in the general direction of the stage. Ah, okay, no bother, eh? Aye, I've always liked this bunch. Upright bass player, great. Dougal made a slight slapping motion with his right hand, holding his left as if gripping an invisible bass neck at shoulder level. The sound of strong 50s style rock and roll influence emanating from the stage always made a welcome change from the ear-bleeding distorted guitar riffs. Dougal decided to try and get a bit closer to the stage, and a minute or two later, Keir joined him, splashing lager from the 2 pints he was holding. Judging by the amount missing from the top of each pint, there had been a bit of copious splashing going on already, indicating as to both how busy the place was and how drunk Keir was getting. "Cheers, mint!" Dougal took the offered beer. They watched the band for some time, their on-stage antics making it hard to look anywhere else. They were putting on a proper show. Full of confidence, working the crowd like the veterans they were. Dougal turned to Keir to check he was also enjoying the spectacle before him, and then suddenly caught her eye again, or rather she caught his, because she wasn't looking at him at all. For a moment, Dougal thought it didn't seem like there was anyone else in the room. Then she looked over directly at him. Dougal raised his pint, one eyebrow, and gave her what he thought would be a rueful smile. She cracked a smile back and added what seemed to be a small giggle, which she quickly covered up, raising her free hand to her beautiful blood-red lips. Dougal looked back at the band, furiously wondering what his next move should be. Whatever it was, it should definitely not be dancing. Dougal had probably been dancing for about an hour by the time he noticed Keir had fallen asleep at the table in the corner. He'd had an early start that morning, getting the bus through from Peterhead, so it was excusable. Dougal decided to leave him to sleep a little bit longer, but keep an eye out for any bouncers heading in his direction, as that would mean a definite red card and ordering off. Elvis would no longer be in the building. Dougal carried on dancing with anyone or anything that was still brave enough to be on or near the dance floor by that time. It only took the first bar of Boys and Girls by Blur to get his body moving, and from there to full tilt crazy dance moves took a matter of minutes. He spun round, disco fingers in the air, to find the girl from the band had been dancing behind him. "Hey!" shouted Dougal above the din. She turned, smiled, and turned back and kept on dancing with her friend. "Aye, you got me there!" He twirled his disco fingers a couple more times, then finding himself completely ignored, decided he would no longer pursue the matter. Hot, sweating and out of breath, he headed over to Keir, just in time as it happened because the glass collector had spotted him and had alerted a bouncer who was now on his way over, ejection on his mind. "It's okay, I'm just taking him out," Dougal said, waving the steward away. "Aye, well, just wake him up, eh?" This guy was big. Dougal didn't want to get on his wrong side any more than he had already done. "No problem, we're just going." Keir woke up just then anyway, of which Dougal was glad. He didn't want the added problem of waking a comatose Keir. The guy liked to sleep. "All right, man," Dougal inquired of his friend. Aye, did I fall asleep?" "Just for a wee while there. Come on, let's go. We've a party to get to." They made their way once again out into the dark night, and just as they were leaving, Dougal glanced back to the dance floor to catch the hastily retracted gaze of Guitar Lady. He smiled to himself, and he and Keir ventured out into the cold.